Welcome to Notable, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Rutherman.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Life is Strange True Colors, which is a game that was developed by Deck 9, published by Square Enix, and was released in 2021 on Windows, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and on Stadia.
Yeah, apparently that's still kicking.
Yeah, and I think this might be the first game we've talked about that had it on the list.
I think so. That sounds right to me.
Yeah. So leave a comment if you know anyone who's used Stadia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but first, if you give us a like or a rating, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Life is Strange True Colors is debatably the third entry in the Life is Strange franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Solely because Life is Strange Before the Storm was a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this follows the same non-numbered naming convention and was also developed by somebody other than Don't Nod.
Right.
But it does play in a similar manner to other games in the series. It is a walking around and talking to people style adventure game where the majority of your choices come in the form of dialogue options.
Mm-hmm. In the Telltale kind of style.
Yes. And also your character has a superpower that is debatably useful.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess this is probably the least directly useful power of them. But I think that really plays into why this game is good.
Mm-hmm. Empathy, not useful. Chad Rutherman, 2021.
Well, I guess... let's talk about the superpower mechanics, because that's not really the thrust of the game so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this game, basically, you are able to sort of the game sets it up as you are able to feel the emotions of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just described it as empathy, but it is basically an extremely heightened form of it that you can tap into.
Yeah, she's an empath.
Yeah. But the game does treat it a lot like mind reading. Like you're able to just hear what they're thinking, which is definitely just a stopgap measure because they cannot convey you feeling like something.
Right.
To the player who is not actively doing the thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are a few places in the game where it does feel like it is there as an explicit puzzle, which debatably is the weakest thematic use of it, though maybe one of the stronger gameplay uses. It's an interesting power to center the game around because you do not have any... You are not able to go up against a group of armed guards because of this power you have, which is similar to situations that they would have put you in the first two Life is Strange games, because you had a character who could throw shit with his brain or reverse time.
Right.
So there were a lot of very dangerous scenarios that you could get into in those games and then cheat your way out of with superpowers.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that sort of thing could have been used to... I mean, it does get used at the end, where a character has a gun, and you kind of have to, talk them out of shooting anybody with your, reading their emotions. But, yeah, it does feel different. Yeah, there's more threats in the first two games more often than in this one.
Yeah, and it's, to me... It does kind of feel like they listen to our podcast on Life is Strange too. Because it seemingly corrects so many of the issues that we had with the previous games. Your character is now the one with the power again. You have a lot more time to spend with the characters and get to know them. And then also, just as a bonus, and this didn't affect us in either of the previous two games, but it did also release all at the same time. This was it is still in a 5-act structure,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not. They did not release them episodically.
Yeah. Yeah, just before we quit talking about the power, I don't know if you were trying to transition the topic there or not, but yeah, it's definitely a lot better than what we got in Life is Strange 2, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a much better follow up to kind of like the idea from the first one. It's I feel like still not quite as good. You can still really feel that missing element. Like the time rewind just really fit with the kind of like dialogue tree style of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
But this comes close to like it's a I think worthy like successor or substitute if we're gonna try and do something different.
Yeah, it feels like, and I think we've said this before. The Life is Strange 1 feels like the game was designed and then the power was designed to fit the game, and or rather like the style of game was chosen in order to fit the power that they had come up with. Something along those lines. There was a melding from the very beginning.
The ideas informed the design.
Yeah. Whereas in the sequels to the game, it does feel more like they have a base gameplay that they want the series to follow, and then they change the power each time.
Yeah, because like we had to do something different.
Right.
Yeah.
So, while I agree with you, I do think this comes the closest to having, like, an effect on what your actual gameplay is.
Yeah, like it affects the decisions because you can read what people are thinking about, you know, what you're gonna do, and also like this is something that I felt like it really lacked in the second one. You can use the power outside of those choices.
Yeah,
you know, we just like walking around. You can just like read people's emotions like on the street and maybe interact with them, et cetera, et cetera. There's like little items around that you can get like a memory from, like for the achievements, like the photos in the first one. I mean, it just really fits.
Yeah, and that also brings up another point where it is like the power in this game feels more malleable, like it has more of a ambiguous use. The use of the time travel in the first game to literally go like years back in time, if you like found a photograph that had like significant attachment to it, you could go further back, did feel like it was this big like amp up. In this game, it just feels like your ability can sort of broadly be applied to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Which is an ambiguity that works, I think, because the game is just the nature of these games are sort of like a magical realism, and it's easier to just say the rules of this are fuzzy.
Yeah, it's one of the things actually I wouldn't say I dislike, but it's one of my like lesser favorite things about the game is that the power doesn't really feel like it's integrated into the story all that much.
Right.
Yeah, because like as you were just bringing up, like in the first game, the time travel powers are very much like part of like what it's about. Like Max and Chloe are like trying to figure out her powers. Like there's the part where you break into like the principal's office and you do all the time travel shit, and then you appear behind Chloe, and she's like, how the fuck did you get in there? Et cetera, et cetera. It's like a big part of the narrative, yeah, like the going back through in time through the photograph. It all like builds to like the climax, and it's like intertwined in the story.
Yeah.
This one, it doesn't really have that, which it doesn't have to, right? But it does make the power feel a little bit tacked on at times.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a theme. Like if there's a Life is Strange 4, most likely we're gonna have the exact same things to say, unless they just bring the time travel powers back.
I kind of feel like they should.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's a thing they're going to do.
I mean, I feel like they've done their due diligence and explored other ideas, but I feel like you can't replace it.
Right.
At least they haven't yet.
Yeah. Yeah, even in the game that is most directly tied to one, they just issued having a power at all.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, the absolute worst case scenario is that Life is Strange 4 is Life is Strange The Avengers.
Where they all team up.
Yeah, and it's like all of the powers are together and they explore and find the cosmic entity that's gifted them all these powers, and then I'll cry and not be able to go on.
That's almost so dumb that it would be awesome.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. Or I will take that job offer.
I mean, I wouldn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
but I would love it.
And you'll want some more of it.
Exactly.
And speaking of things I want more of, coherency on this podcast. So yeah, you have this power, and the gameplay, if you haven't played a Life is Strange game, first of all, shame on you. But also is this dialogue tree based thing, and the way that they sort of integrate the power into it in this particular one is that your ability to read somebody's thoughts can sort of like edge you toward, it's more player focused. I think there are probably a few instances that I'm just forgetting where using your power on somebody will unlock new dialogue options with them.
It does.
Okay.
There's a handful of them.
Yeah, but for the most part, it feels, and this is why I really like this power in the game, is it feels like it puts more of the decision making on the player, where in the first game, yes, the time travel powers are great, and I'm never going to say that they are not. It allows you to make the decisions and then revert and then go back and make those decisions again until you get the outcome that you want.
Right.
This feels more like a puzzle where you want to choose like the best option for what you want to happen.
Right.
And the power gives you insight as to how to make that decision.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I like it a lot. I would put it on par with the time travel, personally. I think it is very good in the way that games can be good. That isn't what I mean to say.
Yeah, now, I agree when it comes to like the dialogue stuff. I just feel like the time travel just had too many other uses outside of that and I think that's what makes it shine more. Yeah. At least in my book.
Well, no, and I agree with that. I just mean within the mechanics of this like genre of game.
It gives it a little bit more of a challenge. Yeah. More of a reason to play it again, because you can't just see all the outcomes.
That is true. I've yet to play a single Life is Strange game more than once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I've played the first one 3 times. I don't know how that happened for me.
So, yeah, Andy, I never have time to do anything because I'm too busy replaying Life is Strange 1.
Right.
So, but that is a good point. It does make me sort of want to go back and do other things. There are a few choices that I labored over in this game and would like to go back and see what the alternatives were in the end. I don't like. My brain is pushing me toward wanting to talk about the narrative of the game, but it feels like we should get through more before we get there.
Yeah. So one thing I think a little bit more on just like the gameplay kind of side of things is you have like a hub town in this one. I think what's it called? Haven Springs. Yeah. Which I feel like there's implied to be more to the town than you get to explore, but it almost feels kind of comically small of a little community.
Yeah, it's like one street.
Yeah, but I do really like it, and the visuals I think really get to shine a lot in this one. They've made like significant upgrades to the art. Yeah, which is a way you don't really realize because it's been gradual, but like it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and this is. Like, debatably, they are pandering a bit to people who liked the first Life is Strange. Because Life is Strange 1 also had sort of a central location in the form of the campus of the school that you were in. Yeah. And it was a lot bigger, and there was a lot more sort of walking from place to place, and they would put stuff around. And in this game, it is just sort of this one street. But I think there's a density here. You didn't play the DLC for this game, did you?
No, I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, there's DLC. It's called Wavelengths, and it's a prequel story where you play as Steph.
Huh.
And in that game, you exist solely and only within the record store.
Interesting.
And it extremely fucking puts into relief how good it is to have a world to move around in and have your world not be one room.
I don't think I would need to have that illustrated for me. But...
No, I don't think many people would. But if you feel like you do, playing Life is Strange Wavelengths would be a good way to figure that out. And yeah, I mean, Haven Springs is cool, and I really like sort of the existence of the hub town. But I think it is like the fact that the game seems to only ever reference things that are there.
Yeah,
is what makes it feel like it's comically small, like you said.
Yeah, it's one of the makes it feel a little video gamey at times.
Yeah, it's like characters will like reference. They're like, "Oh yeah, I just came down from Boulder," and you're like, "Oh, Boulder, Colorado." That doesn't exist here. That hasn't. They didn't render Boulder. We've got Main Street.
Yeah,
that's kind of it.
I almost would compare it to like Jackson from The Last of Us. It's like a very small community in the mountains that has no contact with anywhere else.
Yeah, and it does. I feel like because like what they're going for with Haven Springs is this sort of like they're really going back to their roots with the Pacific Northwest town in the idyllic countryside. Right around fall time, or at least it gives the impression of being in that. I think this game spans like a larger time period than just one season.
Yeah,
but it's funny to me how much these types of like hipstery little towns always just feel like you're wearing a flannel or like a flannel shirt and drinking pumpkin mocha or something. It's like an aesthetic, you know?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
And it really embodies it by being so small.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it, like, for the most part. But I did kind of feel like it maybe limited the game in a few places. Yeah, I would have liked a few more locations. Like, the part where you go to the mine really stands out in my memory because it's not in the main town. So yeah, I feel like having a few more areas like that would have been to the game's benefit.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, because you have like a few excursions, and one of them is awful. And it is when you fall into a hole, and then you limp in the dark for a long time. And I don't count that as a new location because it is not. It's nothing. It's a ground rendered in blackness. But yeah, going to the mine, going into the woods to some extent, even though it largely plays out in cutscene, and then the sequences that take place in the past I think are really good. Because of that, I think maybe having so much of the game take place on a single street helps those stand out more.
Yeah,
maybe if to spin it positively.
Yeah, I mean it does. But yeah, I feel like just adding in a few more like different locations or places you get to go to would have just made for a better like balance.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. Of the locations that you do get to go to regularly in this game are basically a series of shops, and they're all sort of vehicles for individual characters, with kind of the exception of the Black Lantern, which is where everyone just kind of meets up all the time. And I mean, this is probably evidence that Haven Springs is not just one street, because, like, I don't think that, like, Charlotte just lives in the dispensary.
Right, yeah. There is, like, a part of the street where you can't go down. Like, there is more
Right.
to it. It's just easy to forget.
Yeah. And it is kind of funny, because it's where a game like this thrives on sort of making you feel like you're part of the game world.
Mm-hmm.
And the most immersion breaking thing is when you just like walk down the street and your character goes, I don't think I need to explore the rest of Haven Springs right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh,
I can't go any further across this bridge because there's like a bag of mulch right here.
Yeah. But those locations do bring out a lot in the characters, which I think is what I would want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
This game feels like it has a focus, unlike Life is Strange 2, on actually developing its cast. And a lot of characters seem to have a lot more going on. I don't know if I would put it on par with the first game, where I feel like people really felt like people. Mm-hmm. And in this game, there are a lot more instances of things that are kind of like, I don't know, a shade too shallow for me.
Yeah. No, I would agree. It isn't quite as well fleshed out as the first one is, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. But, like, Charlotte, Ethan, Steph, Ryan, and Jed, I think are all really well fleshed out in the game. I think they do a good job of at least giving them all a personality.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they bring back the, like, cell phone social media page, I think is a big strength here. It does require you to be the kind of person who will go back and read all of the posts, which I did because it put a little dot on the screen, and I couldn't tolerate that. I had to make sure that it was all read at all times.
Yeah, I'm like that with everything in life. Like, it almost gives me a heart attack when I look at people's phones and they have like 3,000 emails and like I can't stand that. and like 12 apps that need to be updated. Any kind of red dot,
yep,
I have to get rid of it.
You've been fully...
I don't even leave tabs open in browsers.
That's the thing that is wild to me.
Yeah, because it does not... I don't think it's worth the amount of time saved to just keep it open. You can just like type Y. Then you can go right to YouTube immediately. I don't need to keep it open. But that's just me.
It's not about the time save. It's about you're going to forget what you were looking at. You have to keep it open as a reminder.
Okay,
maybe that's me. Maybe we're each weird, but in different ways.
I don't think I ever leave like any business I'm like attending to like on the internet like half finished and walk away from it.
You build fewer Magic the Gathering decks than I do.
Fair. Yeah, I don't really do anything like that.
I'm like, what if I need to remember the card Theleonite Monk? Let me give you
I do that on my phone sometimes if I was looking at a thing, but it's pretty rare for me personally.
Fair. Well,
anyway, this fucking tangent.
This mild sidebar, we'll call it. Yeah, but it keeps you sort of like posted on what the characters are doing. And it is sort of like a cheap way of giving them additional like life outside of the game. But it allows each of them to be written in their own sort of voice, and lets them actually exist as characters, even if they are probably more characters than they are real people.
Yeah, I would even argue that I wouldn't even really call it cheap. I actually think it's pretty clever. It rewards players who care, and I always think it's nice to, if you want to flesh stuff out like that. We've talked about this sort of thing before, where like having like a codec or like some kind of encyclopedia of information, like we talked about this with Metroid Prime. I can get tedious to like have to read about everything, and like sectioning it off to like an optional space like really works, and like the theming or the presentation of like doing it as a phone and like going through old messages, it really works, I think.
Yeah. Also, they use the text messages too, and depending on who you are, this may or may not be like more of a missed opportunity. But to me, the way that I read it, just from my own personal like understanding, it uses it to address something that hypothetically, if you're thinking about the way her powers work as you're playing the game, you might come up with, and the game doesn't tackle it, but it does put in a little bit of like an explanation. There's a character who is not in the game, who's somebody that Alex knew prior to coming to Haven Springs, who in a text message conversation is like pretty like obviously flirting with her. And then through like gaps, and you get like the messages in between, they describe basically she goes to his apartment or his house, and they end up sleeping together, and she regrets it. And the thing that it answers is, if she feels the emotions of other people, like how do you have a romantic relationship or like date like casually, because you aren't making your own decisions on how you feel. And that would be an incredibly heavy and complicated topic for this game to try and tackle. And I'm glad that they did it the way they did it, because it does answer that question thoroughly and in the way that makes sense and is expected, but without having to actively have that be like nobody wanted a sexual assault in this game, I don't think.
No. But I do wish they would have explored the relationship dynamic more, though. Like, you get to pick between two romantic interests in this, and I found you get to spend disappointingly little time with them.
Sure, I would say, I mean, maybe this is choice dependent, but I felt like I did spend a lot of time with Steph in this game. After the funeral, during that sequence in the apartment, she's one of the first people that you do the like search for objects in the room type puzzles with. Well, okay, maybe that's not enough, but yeah, because you do a similar thing with Ryan, but it feels really detached.
Yeah, it all felt really brief to me. Like there's like the part with the festival or whatever it is. And you get your like your little date scene, but that feels really short too. Like comparing it to like Chloe from the first one, like it feels like you don't even spend an eighth of the amount of time with Steph or Ryan as you do with Chloe.
True, but you probably spend more time with Steph or Ryan than you do with Warren, who is ostensibly the other romantic interest in the first game.
Yeah, but he might as well not even
exactly
be.
Yeah. So they did more work at making them both as viable.
Yeah, they definitely feel like they were given equal attention, which is much better.
Yeah, like Life is Strange 1, for all of its successes, there being a choice as to who to romance was not one of them.
Yeah, I feel like they were just trying to be inclusive.
Sure.
For anybody who just didn't want to romance a female character. But it's so half-assed, though.
Yeah.
It's not even third-assed.
It's not even, it's like quarter-assed. And in the second game, they made two unappealing options.
Yeah, that you spend even less time with. So
yeah, so this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, this is definitely like landing in the middle, much closer to what would be ideal.
Yeah, I do, and I mean, I like the characters of Steph and Ryan.
Yeah, me too.
But I agree, at least to some extent, that we don't get enough time with both of them to make like an informed decision, but maybe that isn't really what they want you to be doing anyway.
Like the part like in the bar where you pick like who's gonna be the distraction for like the representative of the mining company or whoever.
Yeah.
It's just like it cuts to the two of them and I'm like, I don't fucking know who I want to pick yet. Like, you know, like so that one I like took like a long pause and I was like, is this gonna lock me into one of them or is this a casual thing? Like it's making it seem really important. And I feel like I don't really know either of these characters super well yet.
Yeah, that was the point in the game because that happens in like chapter 2.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah, and it's the part in the game where I was like, oh, these are the two romantic interests for the game. And that's kind of lame in a way. I kind of like wanted it to be ambiguous as to whether or not they were even going to do the romance thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since I read that text, it was like, maybe it's off limits this time around for good reasons. But it wasn't, and it's here. And that's when they sort of introduce you to the idea of the two of them. And I would say that scene is bad, like not good.
Yeah.
Because you like the way that it pans out is like it's these characters you already haven't spent much time with them, and then they show up like they're the fucking A-team, and they're like, all right, what's our weird plan that we've decided to hatch while you're at work at this bar? And it's just a joke. Like, they just do it as a joke, where she's like, here's my awful plan. And Ryan's like, well, I have the same awful plan. And you're supposed to be like, ha, and then just go along with it, I guess.
Yeah. It's a very, like, tell, don't show sort of thing. It cuts from the end of the first episode, and then it's just like, oh, it's been a few months. Now me and Steph and Ryan are good friends. And then they have that scene where it's like supposed to be like they're all like buddies, and it feels forced.
Yeah, and I think it's the only time in the game where you do something that is just so like needlessly reckless.
Yeah,
as going in with such a garbage plan. It also does really hinge on this one character's sexuality being entirely fluid up to that point.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
I mean, kind of. But I feel like that would still, as dumb of a plan as it is, and as weird of a scene, I feel like that would still work in real life, even if she was straight, if you send Steph. Because, like, it would be surprising and would probably make you go flustered and would distract you.
Sure. I do feel like there should be maybe like an inner monologue thing.
Yeah, like
where Alex is like...
Yeah, can read her mind, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that, or just like a thing for the player's benefit to be like, regardless of how bad this plan is, as long as they're distracting enough. Like, to make it seem like she was going along with it because... she knew that it would work in, like, the abstract.
Yeah, it's like she knows she's holding all the cards because she has a superpower, and she thinks she can just handle it on her own, but then just uses them as a distraction, and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yep. Where, in the end, you do just kind of, like, do a little bit of sleight of hand.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like a, hey, look over there moment where they just pluck the USB drive. Which is a weird plot focus for a lot of the game, is this USB drive. And it's how they rope... Note, one of the characters whose name I did not list under the feels fully fleshed out.
The cop?
No.
Oh.
Riley. The flower shop.
Oh, yeah. I liked Riley, though.
Yeah, she's fine.
That's like the character that I wish would have been bumped up to the level of the others. Like, she's almost there.
Yep. I agree. But the reason that she's even as close as she is because they rope her in to this, like, flash drive scheme because she's like a computer whiz.
Because of the Alzheimer's adopted grandma.
But put this
relationship
down under reasons that I should play the game again.
That
didn't go fucking anywhere for me. Evidently there's a scene where you can find her at the festival before she like leaves for college and either tell her or not tell her.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Yeah, and so after the third episode, barely even in the third episode, so after episode 2 and one conversation in the third, I never saw her again. She was just gone from the game.
Yeah, no, it was a similar thing for me. I found their dynamic intriguing and wanted to see more of it. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that to me that is why she doesn't feel fully fleshed out.
No, I agree.
Because she vanished.
Right, but I feel like you can get a sense that maybe there's more in there that you just missed.
Maybe Wavelengths should have focused on Riley. Who knows?
I mean, if I was going to pick a character, that might have been it. Or the what's her name? Your dead brother's girlfriend.
Oh,
Ethan's
Charlotte.
mom. Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And also Gabe is the dead brother.
Gabe, yeah. Yep. Definitely should have refreshed on these names.
We really should have, yeah. Hopefully that does not continue to be a recurring point that we make. Oh yeah, so how do you feel right now, Andy?
That's pretty good.
All right, that's great.
Temperature's pretty nice.
Hopefully this won't be bringing you down too much. Because how do you feel about this game's... Because all the games have them.
Mm-hmm.
This game's sudden, tragic, heartbreaking moment of Gabe being crushed by a boulder.
I mean, I definitely didn't see it coming, so I guess it worked as like a shocking twist. Apparently, it was actually part of the marketing. Like, they spoiled that.
Oh, wow.
But I did not watch any trailers, so
Same.
It was a surprise for me. But I ended up feeling like it felt like a missed opportunity. I really liked their relationship. I like Gabe as a character. Like, I felt like they're separated foster children, or separated siblings who were in different foster care.
Yeah.
Reconnecting. And I thought there was a lot of interesting material there, and kind of feel like I would have liked the game to have focused on their relationship and kept him alive.
Yeah, or at least given him more time.
Yeah, because like it ends up feeling kind of weird. Yeah, do it later in the game. That would also probably work as well.
Yeah.
But it felt kind of weird, like, tonally to me, where it's just kind of like Gabe dies and you basically just become new Gabe. Like, you just adopt all of his friends and basically take his place in the community.
And his job. Like, he's a bartender. And his apartment.
It's really weird.
And you're kind of Ethan's dad.
Yeah.
You definitely do just sort of, like, usurp Gabe as a new person in the community.
Yeah, it's strange. Life is strange.
Life is strange.
But yeah, like, I would think about it every now and then, but sitting here talking about it, it's even weirder than I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. I just agree so much. My least favorite thing about Life is Strange 2, a game that I didn't like a lot of things in, was that they made it so incredibly obvious that the dad was going to be killed or was going to be removed from the story in some way.
His life force was marked for termination.
It absolutely was, and it happens instantly. Like, there's no time that you get to spend with this character before they get killed. And the thing that's cool about the first game, God, we have 3 episodes in this series, and all of them are just fucking odes to Life is Strange 1.
Yep.
Is you play this game as a real-life relationship simulation game, essentially, with time travel powers, for 3 chapters. And then there's, like, a big mystery that really sets in. Yeah. There's, like, a little bit of it sprinkled across all of them, but it's not the plot until late in the game. And it feels very natural, like it comes up. And this game wants to get into that conspiracy really quickly. And so Gabe gets killed in an, I'm going to say it, and people are going to be mad at me, kind of a funny way. Because it's not that dying in the woods is funny, but, like, the way that it's set up, it feels like a comedy shot to some extent. You, like, look over and Gabe, like, basically gives you a thumbs up before a boulder comes from off screen and knocks him into a pit. Like, it's really fast and kind of goofy. Especially in a video game context with a character who you don't have a lot of setup with. I almost thought that he was going to just be, like, hanging from the rope, dangling off of the cliff.
Ryan
and then
cuts it, though.
Yeah. And I thought he was just going to climb back up and be like, whoa.
Yeah, it does kind of seem like everything is okay for a second.
And then it just very much is not. But, I mean... I went off. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But it sets up the story of the game to be more about this, like, the accident was set up to cover up a second explosion, etc. We'll get to the actual plot later.
Yeah, I think it could have worked better if they would have, like, spun it more in a way that, like, Alex and friends were, like, really obsessed with solving this conspiracy as, like, a coping mechanism.
Right.
But it kind of just seems like everyone just forgets about Gabe because they have new Gabe, aka Alex. And I mean, they do bring it up sometimes, but I feel like focusing in on that would have made it work a lot better.
Yeah. And, like, part of why I like this game more than 2, and why I think it is in competition with 1, is because it does spend more time with the characters. And it is just, like, this background detail for a long time, this whole mining conspiracy. But they jump into it so fast.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think my actual, like, least favorite thing about this game is the story pacing. Like, I think I said this exact same thing about the second one, and while this one is much better than the second one, it is still worse at it than the first. But this game's just as long as the first one, like about the same length, but it feels like half as much stuff happens in it. Like, there's something about, like you were talking about, like that slow build up of just kind of like living Max's life, and getting to, like, know her routine, like her friends, like that she spends the night at Chloe's house, and and she wakes up to a text message from her mom in the morning, who seems like she doesn't have a great relationship with them. And it's like, I feel like I could tell you so much about Max.
Right.
And anyway, you really get to live that life with her, and then the supernatural stuff, like, becomes more prevalent as it goes.
Like, kicks into
you have to, like, lay
gear.
the groundwork first, like lay the steady foundation for the house. And that's something, both the second and third one did, was they just kind of raced to the supernatural elements, like, too quickly.
They were those houses that you just, like, load onto a truck and put somewhere.
They're a real, like, Edith Finch house.
They built, there was already a house there, and they just kept building more onto it. I feel like pacing is actually probably a good way of thinking about it. Because to me, as somebody who was liking the game as I was playing through it, I was very comfortable ignoring all of the plot, basically. I was like, oh yeah, let me fucking have this great conversation and stuff. I said to you on multiple occasions, before you played the game and before I got to the part in the game where this became a funny statement, is that I was on Team Jed. I was like, Jed is great and is the best character, and I love Jed. And then in the end, he turns out he's not a very lovable guy.
Yeah.
And man, did that fucking take me by surprise. And I was like, wow, because I spent all that time with Jed and felt like I really got to understand him. And that was great. And then there were probably tons of hints about, because of his, like, time in the mine and, like, what are they called? Like, the Hell Riders or something?
Something like that.
Hell Divers. That's it. Because they dive into caves.
Yes.
And all of that, like, could have led me into this is somehow also part of that conspiracy that I've been ignoring. It was like I was trying to force the game to have more of that alone time that I wanted so badly.
Yeah.
So, we have attempted over the first 40 minutes of this podcast to emulate the slow pace build-up to the grand schemes that was present in the first Life is Strange game that we hark back to so very often. So, do you want to take a break and then go into episode 2 where we talk about the plot of the game?
After the break.
After the break. Welcome back. we're going to talk about the plot now. We sort of like danced around certain elements of it. This is definitely big spoilers mode.
Oh yeah.
So when you get to this point in the podcast, if you still haven't played the game,
Yeah. Also, probably the first two games as well.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk about those as if you've played them as well. So
right. Well, we'll most likely go in the first game, blah blah blah. Here are the things that we liked about the first game, and it's a big spoiler, and you should play it. And then the second game sucked, and then here's how it happened in this game. That's
take those cheap shots.
That's my prediction for how the conversation will go.
Sure, yeah. I'm just saying, just in case there might be some spoilers for the other two.
Yeah. So yeah, the game centers around this accident that we talked about in the first chapter of the game, where your brother Gabe is crushed by a big boulder and knocked off of a cliff. And the question is, did the mining company, Typhon Mining, have something to do... Can you tell I looked up the name of the company over the break? Have anything to do with the death? Were they being negligent?
Yeah, and you have like the shitty boyfriend who you had a entanglement with earlier. You beat him up.
Mac is his name.
Yeah, and there's some speculation that he's responsible because he's the one who received the call that there were going to be people up there, and to call off the postpone the demolition or whatever you want to call it, the explosion, whatever they're doing, mountaintop removal, controlled demolition. There's
like a flyer that you can read, like basically the second you get control of your character. That's not actually true because there's a sequence in the flower shop first, but there's a point very early in the game where you can read a flyer that talks about the planned demolition. And so you can actually be aware of it, and I was, before Ethan tells you that he's gonna go into the mines. But I don't think that the game assumes that you will know.
Yeah, I don't think I internalized it. I'm pretty sure I read that flyer, but did not think of it when Ethan brought it up.
Right. I was like, where's the option to say you'll die in an explosion if you do that?
Yeah.
And so the sort of like animating thing that puts the story into motion is you going after Ethan, and I thought that was all really good.
Yeah, I really liked. It's a simple little thing, but like having to use the comic book to figure out like where he went is a nice detail.
It's a signpost because like we'll big up the first game forever and ever.
Yeah.
But it really didn't have a lot of like abstract puzzle solving. It was a lot of the puzzles were very heavily based in your time travel mechanic.
Yeah.
It was a lot of like figure something out and then go back and change the course of it.
Drop the paint bucket on that bitch Victoria.
Yeah, and that was abstract in kind of the bad way, where it was hard to figure out.
Yeah.
But in this game, there's a lot more sort of like nuance to the puzzle solving, and that is the signpost for it, where you're like, oh, like I have to use the whatever the comic book pages to like line up with this area because Ethan just drew what he saw. And it's interesting, like it's cool, and the payoff is pretty good because you do get like what is it, Thanor, the comic book character?
That sounds right.
Yeah, like that is like a continual thing throughout the game where he'll like drop a new issue and you can read them in the record store. So there's it gives character to Ethan and to Gabe. And not so much to Charlotte, who does not get involved in their son's imminent peril. I'm sure that they just didn't want her to be there in the scene.
Yeah.
But it does make her look pretty bad.
She had to man her drug paraphernalia store.
Yeah. So I think this like opening sequence is really good. Even though I do think that the plot ends up kicking off a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, but I think just as an isolated episode, it actually has really good pacing.
Yeah.
Because you get to like the whole setup of like exploring the town and learning the ropes, and then things escalate. Like it's got a nice feel to it. The first episode does.
Yeah, and you get an introduction to Alex's powers in this episode through a combination of the first time with Mac where you like absorb his anger.
Did that scene feel kind of weird to you?
Weird,
Especially...
like forced?
No, but like it felt like it was setting up. It made me think the powers were gonna work different than they end up.
Okay.
The fact like she takes his anger and then is so consumed by that she beats him up.
Right.
Because he was gonna beat up her brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like it made it seem like that sort of thing was going to be more significant, like the taking people's emotions and having to learn how to control it.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I also thought that it set up for you to be more I don't know, influenceable.
Yeah.
Than you end up being. Like you have a lot more control over it than I think that sequence implies.
Yeah, it made me think that it was just going to work different in a way that like stood out to me as kind of weird.
Yeah. And it does sort of all play out in a cutscene. Like I think that you have like one or two sort of token options during that.
The part with Charlotte, I think is a much better introduction where it's like actually has you like observe her being mad and then do it through gameplay where you take her power, you can make the choice to do it.
Right.
That felt like it recontextualized it much better, but that's like 2 episodes later.
Yeah.
It's weird how it's introduced.
Yeah, that is the time travel in a photo moment of this game.
Kinda, yeah.
Where, because it introduces this thing that ends up getting used about, like, God, I want to say only one other time. Because you can take the fear from,
right.
What's his name?
Yeah.
The cop guy.
Mm-hmm.
So... I don't know. I agree with you, I think. Like, it was strange, and life was strange, and it did make me feel like in the very next sequence where you're tending the bar, after whatever that fight happens, it made me not want to go close to Mac in case, like, I caught whatever emotion it was he was feeling.
Yeah.
And I guess that was a good instinct because when you get close to Mac, it does immediately start a cutscene where Riley shows up at the bar.
Yeah, and like you were bringing up earlier with like the romantic feelings thing, like it does make it feel weird that there isn't like a flirty scene where you like just like catch some of like the other person's like lust or love, and then you just start making out with them.
Right. Yeah.
Or like apply it to other emotions. It doesn't really happen like that.
Yeah. And I do feel like that is a writing thing. Like they wanted to make it not happen all the time because it would be really hard to. But it shows that
could have happened
like, you're
more
in
though, or like you start
for
crying
right
because someone else is sad, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they do it in like the lightest way, where there's just sort of like occasionally a moment where it'll happen when it's important.
Yeah,
but I think the Ethan fear section though.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
You see the monster.
Yes. Though I will say that I thought that maybe there was just like a snake. Like, because he was like, he didn't want to move, and it was like, oh, maybe, because Ethan knows that if he makes a sudden movement, maybe the animal will attack him. But Alex doesn't know that, and probably doesn't have a lot of experience with snakes.
Or doesn't see it.
Yeah, and doesn't see the snake. And I thought that was going to be the resolution of that sequence, but then there was a big cavern spanning big monster face.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, like, that actually is a good point, or like a good thing to highlight, is her relationship to Ethan because he's a kid. Like, you have the whole 3rd episode, which I'm sure we'll talk about at length in a little bit, but it's the LARPing part where you do like a whole RPG thing. It's through like Ethan's eyes, and at the end, once you get him fully into it, you cheer him up. It completely changes the world to like an actual fantasy world because you see it how he does.
Right.
So having her like
I'm like getting chills thinking about how good that sequence was.
But like that would have been I think a good thing to focus in on more as well, is like her relationship to Ethan and how he sees the world, and that how she can visualize it because of her powers. Like you could have done a lot more with that.
Yeah. Ethan feels like such an important character, especially early in the game.
Yeah.
Because you are like, you're sort of kind of not by law his like aunt. And so because of this, like, you have this connection to Ethan, and also you have this empathy power. And so you're dealing with a kid who's like just old enough to start really understanding the more like dour parts of the world and life and death and everything around those. And they play it up like at the beginning, like you have this whole sequence with Charlotte where she's like, do I sign this paper? And then you do have that moment that you talked about with Charlotte's like rage. And you get a nice little fantasy moment in there as she's like smashing the shit into the block of marble, and the faces are coming out of it. And it's this like heightened reality. But then sometimes that heightened reality is just you punch Mac in the face a bunch.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of missed potential. Yeah, like as you mentioned, it could happen with other characters too. It doesn't just have to be through the lens of like a child. But yeah, like exploring, like it would have been nice to see a little bit of each character's psyche in that way.
I wish this was Psychonauts 3.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Psychonauts is the perfect comparison.
Yeah.
But like much more like realistic. Because it's just like a supernatural kind of world.
Yeah. Because you have the power. It's not like it is.
You have the power.
I could like smell that happening.
I was reaching for my drink and I was like a dog. I was like, I can make a He-Man joke.
But yeah, you do have this power, and so you don't have to exist purely in the realm of reality. You can put in these little fantasy moments, and I think they do get more ambitious with this kind of thing as it goes on, but then there are moments that are like really calling for it that
just don't get it.
Like, can you imagine if when you took the fear from the police officer, it like you saw him like standing there like in like the orange jumpsuit with handcuffs?
Yeah, you could do
something.
like Arkham Asylum Scarecrow stuff.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be very long, just like a brief snapshot.
Yeah, or like with Eleanor, you could like experience like her like fear at forgetting things and stuff. Like, yeah, it just feels like there's a lot on like potential with that.
Yeah, but Ethan being a kid and being the
it's like the
one,
best. Yeah,
and I guess they
realize that because that's the one that they do it the most with.
Right. But yeah, if I spin this if I was the PR representative for fucking Deck 9, you do also get that fantasy sort of visuals with Charlotte, who is an artist.
Right.
So it's like the people who have a really evocative artistic mind are the people that you get the really loud scenes with.
Right.
I don't know. I would have liked to have seen more just for the fun of it.
Steph is also a musician, so she's creative as well.
That's a good point. Yep. But nope, just foosball. But yeah, that's the first episode, and I liked the first episode well enough that I was like, we just have to do this on the podcast.
Yeah. As long as it wasn't bad, like we were gonna do it.
There was a thought, though. We were like, it might be bad.
Oh, yeah. I was like Mr. Cynical about this game. I was like, 2 was not my thing, but it sold real well and reviewed well, so they have no reason to change like their approach. But they did. So here we are talking about it.
But yeah, and that's that. The end.
The end. That's it.
What happens in episode 2 is a lot more of the character building that we'd been talking about. Yes, we do get into the conspiracy very quickly. You even get a sort of like fantasy style scene during the Max paranoia bit, because like you're walking around and you see people staring at you.
Oh yeah.
And you see like the cameras everywhere that probably don't exist.
Or if they do, they probably aren't pointed at him.
Yeah. And you go through this whole thing. I'm not gonna like list off the statistics of all of the choices. But this was one of the ones that I found most amusing, is that like, according to my shit, like 96% of people talked Mac down. In that sequence. There's a part in which the character Mac is like having a breakdown, and the game,
because he feels responsible, or he's been being told to keep everything hush,
right, by Typhon, which sort of is like this is a very like litigious plot to some extent, where the game is like, can we take legal action against Typhon? Which once again is kind of a weird thing, but it is this that's the thing that you're like, oh, okay, well, Mac basically confirmed that they are at fault, so we're gonna move forward with this. But the game also just gives you the option to walk the fuck away from Mac and just let him suffer. And I'm like, I guess it's good that only 4% of people were like, yeah, fuck you, Mac, you piece of shit. But it's rare that I ever see anything in these games that is like that unanimous.
You know, I'm actually kind of surprised as well, because I feel like people like are suckers for that kind of stuff, like, or not, that's a bad way of putting it, but like that's an easy way, I think, to like get under a person's skin, is to like make them feel betrayed, or like somebody is like against them. Like that usually like is really effective in people being just like, fuck Mac, I hate him, he sucks. Like I'm surprised it's that few people just walked away.
Yeah, I think maybe it's the construction of the scene. Like, yeah, I don't really remember it.
I felt pretty bad for him.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, and I know that in my playthrough, Mac and Riley broke up. I don't know if there's a way to prevent that, or if you would want to.
They didn't in mine. Because it's so early in the game, and it's like you come down after you beat him up. And so I felt a little bit bad about that, even though it wasn't my choice to do that.
Right.
But they're having like their argument and everything, and I'm like, and he asks you not to interfere, and so I just didn't, because I'm like, I don't know these people at all, and if you don't say anything, then they just stay together.
Right.
So I kind of regretted that, but
I mean, you took the tack that I did.
I was trying to think of it like real life. Like, I wouldn't say anything probably in real life.
Yeah.
But I would keep tabs on it. And if he got abusive, then I would probably call the cops. But...
Right, yeah. The cop in this game does not seem to be very, like, there's a spectrum of cops, and it's like the one that gets talked about is the cops who do too much.
Yeah.
They're too violent, whatever.
He's like a donut eating cop.
Yeah, he's the cop from The Simpsons. And just does nothing. He just sits around. And everyone who he's ever caught committing a crime, his punishment is he just plays like a prank on them. Yeah,
he's like a weed smoking cop.
Yeah,
basically.
Which I guess was their attempt to make a cool cop.
Yeah, in 2021.
Yeah, but he does just feel like kind of a do nothing loser, more than anything else. I'm not even gonna bother looking up his name. Get fucked, this guy. A cab. All cops are boring. But I've lost the plot fully. I'm trying to think what were the major decisions in the second episode.
It was the second episode's the one where you pick between Ryan and Steph for the distraction.
The flash drive, yeah.
Other than that, I think that's like the main one for 2. But there might be something else.
Yeah, because in the second episode is also where...
Oh, is it to like... No. It's something about the flash drive, I think. There's another decision.
Oh, because is it in the second episode where... No, it wouldn't have been. I'm lost. Help. Throw me a lifesaver.
Is that the one where you can absorb Charlotte's anger? Is that the second episode?
I think that's at the end of 3.
That happens after. I thought like all of episode 3 was the LARPing thing.
Yeah, but then I think afterward you go see Charlotte.
Okay, no, I think you are right. Because I remember thinking episode 3 was really long.
Yeah.
So never mind.
Yep. I know it is the episode where you have the foosball sequence with Steph and the Gabe ran over a goose one time, and Ryan finds it the funniest thing in the whole world.
Yeah, the cheering up Ryan sequence. Yeah.
I think this is another reason, and we can take this moment here as a sidebar to actually talk about the relationship decision. It doesn't technically happen until the 4th episode, but you get introduced to these characters.
Yeah, this is where they, like, signpost it.
Yeah, by giving each of them a scene. And in the scene in episode 2 for Steph, you get this, like, moment in Gabe's apartment, which is now your apartment, because now you're Gabe.
Yes.
And you go around and you can just, like, look at all of the objects and see a memory that is tied in some way to Steph, because they spent a lot of time together. And the goal in the scene is to help you understand Steph's grief.
Yeah.
But what it actually does is make you feel very tied to Steph. You're like, oh shit. And she's a recurring character. She was in Before the Storm, which is Deck 9. I was going to say like Duck 9 or something. It was Deck 9's previous game that they worked on in the series.
Yeah.
So they brought Steph back. And so you know Steph, debatably. You probably know Steph if you're playing the 3rd Life is Strange game. And you get all of these sequences that seem like real interactions. And then you get Ryan's bizarre duck prank where it's a story about how one time they were driving at night and Gabe ran over an animal. And then Ryan tried to convince him that he was going to be like fucking committed for 1,000,000 years for killing this endangered species. And so he goes to the extent of burying the animal, which is funny. But also, how would this ever play out? Like, what it does is it makes Ryan seem like a psychopath.
It is weird.
Like, why would you go to this length to make your friend feel like they're gonna get arrested?
It doesn't make him seem charming at all. No. But that's one thing, at least on PC anyway. I don't know if they break up the statistics by platform. But, like, I feel like the relationship split is, like, 60-some to 40-some, which is a much more even split than I would have guessed.
Yeah.
But I am a heterosexual male, so... But I just thought Ryan was so boring.
Yeah.
And I said to you yesterday, like, I could play this game 10,000 times, and I'm pretty sure I would just pick Steph every single one of them. But if you're attracted to men, I'd like to know, like, if you were into Ryan and why.
Right. Or even if you just, like... Because I guess you can just, way more so than you can with Max. And also way more so than you can with, Sean. I feel like they pushed more in those games. It's really obvious in the first game that they want you to go with Chloe.
Yeah.
And in the second game, I don't know if they wanted you to do anything.
The female love interest is definitely more highlighted.
Yeah, well, and they also make the male love interest seem like
secret.
Yeah, and also like he's a weird, scummy piece of shit.
Yeah.
In this game, it does feel like they actually gave like kind of a choice.
Yeah, no, and I feel like Ryan is more appealing than I would like to give him credit for, but coming down to those statistics, yeah, like it does feel like they're both given the same amount of time. Yeah.
And I think that, like, looking back at previous experiences, you can read Alex as straight pretty easily, I think. There is an... the example that I gave was a poor one for this instance, because, like, the character who only exists through text messages is male, but that doesn't imply that she actually was interested in him. But I think you could read her as straight or gay or bi,
Mm-hmm.
in pretty much all of the interactions that they have. Whereas, like, you spend so much time with Chloe in the first game that it would be hard to, in order for them to even insert romance of any kind into the game, it would be hard to be like, this one exists, but like you could totally read this as platonic. It's like maybe not so much.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe it's just like a placebo or something, or like something I'm primed to think. But like I think they do a good job, at least with Max and Alex, of like making them come off as like bisexual to me, or like not gender fluid, but their sexuality fluid.
Sure.
Because like, yeah, I think either way, like I think I could see Max with a guy or a girl, and same thing with Alex, and it feel like it would make sense.
Yeah.
Sean just came off as straight to me, but
Sure.
yeah, no, I just think they do a good job of like being inclusive in that way, and I think in Life is Strange 1 you get to pick in like a more obscure mechanical way, like which bathroom you choose to go through when you break into the pool. I think can
right.
lock off different romances.
That's weird.
Yeah, because if you try to go to the girls' room, I think it leaves the relationship with Chloe open, and if you go into the men's restroom, it will block it off. But I think it's also influenced by a couple of other things that you say as well.
That's interesting. I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah. Well, if you play the game 3 times.
That is true, yeah. But yeah, so that is sort of like the thrust of chapter 2. Like what's happening in game is sort of about the aftermath of Gabe's death.
Yeah.
There's like a funeral sequence, which is a really well acted scene, I feel. It's really hard to create like a narrative scene in a game like this where people have to pause for you to respond to them. And we talked about this on Oxenfree. If you haven't played that game, they have this like dialogue system. It was like the big selling point of the game, at least from what I was told when I heard about it. That you, like, the dialogue goes on and on and on, and then if you interrupt it with your response, they'll try and respond naturally, and then like they'll pick up where they left off in their previous sentence, and that kind of a thing. And the result always just felt like everyone was sort of talking over each other in a weird way.
And you were afraid to do it because sometimes they wouldn't finish their sentence.
Yeah. So you get like really bogged down in like this other layer of decision making of like when
it's like a
do
meta
I...
element. Yeah, like wait as long as I can and try not to accidentally miss the
like window.
Yeah.
This game, they do a good job of keeping Alex out of a conversation she doesn't need to be in.
Like just having you listen to it.
Yeah. And that sequence where she's sort of like standing by the stairs and everyone is like fighting I felt it was really powerful, and I thought they did a good job of like, even though Mac feels like a one-note character who is just a thorn in the side of everybody that he's around, of like creating a sense of intrigue and like infighting at this like really inappropriate moment. It just worked really well, and it leads into the scene with Steph. It's just, I don't know, I really liked that bit, like at the wake.
Yeah, and it leads to, I think, one of the saddest parts of the game, where when you go and you talk to Eleanor, you'll find out that she just forgot about the funeral and missed it, and she's like really upset.
Yeah.
Like it's like really sad.
It sure is. Do you have to succeed in that little mini game of like putting the stuff in order in order for her to remember that? Like, can you fail and have it ever not remember?
I don't know if you could fail that.
It's possible that you can't fail it.
Yeah, like because I don't think you have like a time limit or anything.
No, probably not. Not sure. I do know that you can intentionally withhold the information from her.
Yeah. I told her though.
Same. I think a lot of players told her,
it's
if
like
I remember.
most. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and that does work really well as sort of this like sad moment, more so than Gabe's actual death.
Yeah.
which is bizarre.
Just kind of swept under the rug a little bit.
Right.
Google, gobble, new game, new game. The actual narrative is that the whole town is a cult, and Gabe lost a lottery. It's like the monsters are due on Maple Street, and they killed Gabe and replaced him with Alex.
Oh my god! Yep, he was the sacrifice for the month. The true reason why he asked Alex to come live there, and why he just straight up gave her the
he was going
apartment.
to try and use her to take his place.
Exactly, yeah.
If he didn't complete his blood ritual fast enough.
The monster that you saw in the crevasse was real.
All right, we solved it.
We did. And that's why the third episode is so happy-go-lucky and nothing happens. So haters are going to say that episode 3 was filler, and fuck the haters. Episode 3 is glorious.
I don't know why you feel that way.
You don't think that it is as glorious as I do?
No, I don't know why you feel like people won't like it.
Oh, that's the right take.
Because I feel like it's exactly the kind of thing that like the audience for these games would love.
That's probably true. I was thinking more along the lines of like general audiences. You get this like first sequence with major character death, second sequence setting up this conspiracy, and then the full third episode is like 90% LARPing. Like with one break for an actual like story moment. But I love it so much.
Yeah.
There's the dude who's like standing out, he's like the blacksmith or something.
Yeah.
And when you read his mind, he's like genuinely really angry that nobody wants blacksmithing. Like he's like, people don't appreciate blacksmiths. Like he's just so into the character.
Yep.
And I laughed like out loud, really, I did about this when I saw it. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Not that I mean, that joke is so funny, but the whole setup is so good.
Yeah.
I can't even describe it.
Deck 9 wants you to know that they're big nerds because they had the D&D sequence in Before the Storm as well. But yeah, it's really cool actually. They do, you set up this whole LARPing, the whole town wide, because the town is one street. Thing, and it's for Ethan to like cheer him up because his dad is dead, right? And so yeah, and you're like his partner, you're a bard because Alex plays the guitar, and you go around with him and you go to all these different places and you get these little like scrolls and little items and you do little quests, and it's really well done, and you have like a little RPG, like simple RPG turn-based battle system thing that you do. It's very charming.
Yeah, and the RPG battle system is very simple, and the scrolls are comically overpowered.
I didn't use them till the end.
Yeah, it's just like, why would I use this here?
Because like I was wise and took the heal spell, so like I was never in any trouble.
No danger whatsoever. They also, and this is in true D&D fashion, give you like an alternate way to get out of combat in like 90% of the situations where it would occur.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think the order I did things made it so I didn't get to take advantage of most of that stuff.
Right. I'm pretty sure that I got it to take advantage of all of it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't find the hint guy until after I'd done like everything. So he was like, oh, the price for the troll is 4 coins or whatever. I'm like, oh, I already killed the troll, but thanks, dude.
Well, I thought,
I didn't go to the bar till last. Like I walked right past it and didn't even notice. So yeah, I did things in probably a weird order.
Yeah, you basically did them in reverse, because like I did talk to tip guy, I did bar first, then came back out like a zigzag pattern. But I mean, I don't think it matters. It just works really well.
It just felt like funny to like go back through and be like, oh, there's like a bunch of stuff that I just didn't. Like I think the first thing I did was kill the river monster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
classic river monster.
I liked that Ryan played all the monsters.
Yeah.
That's charming. I'm into him for that.
Yeah.
He gets points.
You also
oh, you can read his mind when he's on the ground. Like I thought that was like a particularly good moment for the power, where like after you beat him as like the wolf or whatever monster, he's just laying there and you can read his mind, and he's like whatever his internal monologue. It just felt like a really genuine moment that I really liked.
Yeah. And God, I love, and the fact that like Ryan is every monster, you can tell is sort of like tied to the fact that this group of people of Alex, Steph, and Ryan are like the core group of friends that each of them have, and because Alex has already been like harangued into being his bard companion, she was like, sorry, you're the only one left to now play every single monster. It was great. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was really funny. I love the inclusion of things like the fact that the bar is all done up and in this goofy way with like fucking Halloween decorations, severed hands.
Yeah, the record store is the best one, I think. It was like a potion shop.
Yeah. But then there's also just like some guys who are not participating and just like sitting on
around
benches.
The town. Yeah, I liked that.
I love that it is just like, this is as close to the real life thing that you could get in a video game.
Yep.
Which is, I think it's that layer of abstraction that I find funny.
It works in this series. Like it feels at home. So it's definitely like a great idea, I think.
Mm-hmm. Also, if you were committed to Steph as the relationship choice, the sequence in the potion shop is like the most chef's kiss, like adorable moment.
Yeah.
Where you offer your hand in marriage to her.
Yeah, for the jewel.
So no, it just, I don't know. I think as a character, because like we have talked about this. We talked about it in the first game, talked about it in the second game in relation to the first game, and then we're talking about it now. We love these games for their characters, and this is the character building chapter because none of the weird fucking mining plot stuff happens until the very end. So you get this big sequence where all you do is just learn more about Alex and how she feels about everybody. She's really good. She's real, real good. And then you get a sick-ass boss battle at the end.
I will say I also really love this chapter, but a piece of criticism I will offer up against it, though, is that it does kind of feel like it's included at the overall game's expense.
Looks like you're the hater saying it's
no,
filler.
I love the
I'm
part,
joking.
like, as its own thing. But, like, it does kind of feel like, okay, well, let's just put the game on pause and have this, like, really cool section where you just do, like, a LARP.
Right.
Because it goes on really long, and you're right, it's good for character building and stuff, but it doesn't really further the plot really at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like, obviously a lot of production value and time went into it. It feels like it's included, like, to the detriment of other aspects of the game.
It feels like it's maybe a bit of a vanity thing.
Yeah,
like
it's a
they
good
just
way to put
wanted to put in D&D into the game.
That is kind of what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you're gonna do that, you might as well go all out, and they did.
True.
So.
I would be curious as to see, and I'm sure there's a YouTube video of this, what happens if you just like let Ethan get killed in combat.
I'd never thought about it, but
yeah, they make it like almost impossible to happen.
Yeah.
But it would be very amusing to see.
Yeah, I feel like it was the one, like, item on the ground to mind read or to emotion read achievement thing. Like you find the stuff around the environment that I missed. There was like $1 on the ground. And for some reason, I didn't realize you could, like, interact with it. And then I walked into the boss fight, and I was like, oh, if it doesn't let me go back for that $1, I'm going to be pissed. And then it doesn't. And I was like, God damn it. I don't want to have to replay the whole chapter to get that.
Yeah, no, that'd be ridiculous. I missed a lot of this, so I was not pissed. I think I may have gotten the $1, though. I don't remember.
I'm just annoyed by that.
But yeah, so the big choice in this chapter, if we're done talking about the LARP, is whether or not you take Charlotte's anger from her.
Mm-hmm.
And I never asked you this question, but did you do that?
I did.
Okay.
I feel like, based on the statistics, I feel like I did the opposite of what a lot of people do. Because I took her anger, it seemed really, like, messed up. Like, she's like, I hate my son.
Yeah.
And it's, like, really dramatic and some raw shit. So I was like, I'm gonna, like, take her anger. Like, I feel like the ethics of these kinds of questions are, like, pretty complex and everything, but this one definitely feels like it falls on the side of, like, I should take it from her here. But the statistics at the end said that, like, the vast majority of people didn't. And then I didn't take the fear from the cop in the next episode, and most people did do that. So
Right. I didn't take either.
Okay.
Which I realize now means that I just chose not to interact with that part of the game for some reason. I think I didn't take the fear because I already had so much of it, which is why I didn't take any additional. I was afraid of what would happen if I took the anger.
Yeah.
And I was also afraid of what would happen if I took the fear. So I didn't. Though I think what that eventually led to is that he didn't stand up for me in the end. Sequence, like the cop didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other effect to that.
Yeah, I know with the anger, that what ends up happening is you go back to your apartment, to not Gabe's apartment, and you get into an argument with Steph and Ryan because you're angry. And
Right.
for me, I won the foosball game against Steph, so I had the trophy, and Alex takes it and throws it and breaks it against the wall.
Oh, wow.
Because she's pissed. So that's what happens with that. But that's it.
Oh, okay.
And she also didn't take my side in the end. So I don't know what else I missed with her, but
yeah.
our relationship was not at S rank.
It was definitely. Wait, you mean Charlotte didn't take your side?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I do mean that she did not take my side.
Right. Yeah, she did take. I am a little bit disappointed if the result is just certain people do or do not take your side. Depending on that, and then a slightly different sequence in the very same chapter. But yeah, it's a little questionable if that's the case. But,
yeah,
because that is basically what you've described is what happened there.
Yeah.
Interesting though. But yeah, so that's chapter 3. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I liked it. At this stage, where is the conspiracy here? Because this is, you get the flash drive at the end of 3 and go through all of the...
Yeah, you get it cracked.
Yeah, and you go through all of the phone calls.
Yeah, you get the proof.
Yeah.
That
you can tell how much I engaged with this conspiracy plot line.
And then you end up in the fourth one, you have the festival, and you end up getting taken. You get arrested or whatever, taken in for questioning for stealing the flash drive. So yeah, nothing really happens with it in the third episode.
Yeah.
Other than you just get the flash drive cracked for you.
Right. Yeah, you get to go through the phone calls, and I think, like, you find the one where he calls in the, like, the fact that they were out there and to put off
and
the
you find
demolition.
some emails as well that relate to it.
And also there's a phone conversation where Mac orders a pizza, which is... like, I love that kind of stuff, and I'm glad that it was, like, all present there for me to peruse. But I think that's part of the reason why chapter 3 feels really long, is because if you don't just beeline to the things that are important, you can spend a very long time reading really inconsequential shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it. I do like that sequence because it does feel like you're investigating, I guess.
Yeah, and I do think it actually enhances it a little to be put after the LARP. Like, like the contrast gives it a little bit more weight.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the fantasy's over. Put the kids to bed. Now we gotta bust out the flash drive.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, now we'll actually get into, I think, like what the game wants to be about, like the plot part.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fourth episode, a lot of it is spent sort of like at the fair, but not really a ton happens. But this is the sequence where you get to choose between Ryan and you choose your fighter between Ryan and Steph.
Give a rose to your true love.
Which is good that they make it like really obvious that that's what you're doing. But at the same time, it's lame that they make it really obvious that that's what you're doing.
It feels like a natural way, though, because it's like part of the festival or whatever.
Yeah, and it had been like sort of described in places leading up to that. So that's good. Also, there's just a whole music video for Blister in the Sun.
Yeah.
Just in the middle of this, where you play that song. And
you also play Creep in the first episode.
That is true. Yeah, it's
kind of weird.
Yeah, the songs that you yourself play that are not like part of the ambient soundtrack are extremely the songs that you expect to be in a Life is Strange game.
It was really weird because Life is Strange games have always had real music in them, but they're like more diegetic usually, or non-diegetic, I mean.
Yeah.
And just to have Max sing a Radiohead, or not Max, Alex sing a Radiohead song, it just was, I don't know, it just felt really weird.
Yeah, I mean, they are more non-diegetic, but like there's a sequence in the first game where you're on the bus and you've got and you put the headphones on. Yeah. So, like, they try and give a reason, I guess, sort of. But, yeah, most of the time it's just playing ambiently in the background.
Yeah, it's not an actual complaint. It just kind of, like, felt weird.
I'm curious, because I feel like 0 of the songs in this game that aren't sung by Alex are real songs. Yeah. Or rather, they are real songs, but they have bizarre names.
It stands out in contrast, like, to those kinds of details. Like, at the record store, it's, like, 98% fake bands. Right. And then there will be, like, one real one.
Yeah, like there's a sequence in the first episode also where you fucking dance around to a Kings of Leon song.
It's Kings of Leon. That's the one.
It's strange. And like my personal music tastes or whatever, like I don't really like the Kings of Leon, but I think that sequence works. Whereas, like it felt weird to me that they had a whole sequence of you playing Blister in the Sun, which is a song I do like.
Yeah.
And that one felt like it was
more
a
appropriate
whole moment.
Because it's like you're playing it at a carnival or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a reason for you to get on stage and play a song.
Sure. You were being forced to.
Yeah.
Right. So then you get arrested.
Yeah.
But not for copyright infringement. For stealing the flash drive. Which this is probably the most boneheaded thing that your character does in the whole game, where you just are like, here it is, the stolen flash drive.
Yeah,
like you
all
call about it before.
Yeah.
But it's like, why do this? Like, I get you found the evidence, but you just like call the one lazy cop. And they're like, we have the evidence to bring down this major mining corporation. Can call a lawyer.
Yeah. I think it's to emphasize the fact that they're young. And they don't know what the fuck they're doing. At least that's what it did for me. Yeah. Like it's easy to think of the characters as like the same age as you.
Sure.
With these sorts of things. So like I think it just kind of brings that back into perspective that she's like 19 or no, she has to be 21.
Yeah, she does 10 bar.
Yeah.
She's old enough to know that this is information you should take to a lawyer.
I was thinking she was 18 because she had just been in foster care.
Right.
But I guess maybe she's been out for a few years before her brother found her. Maybe. I don't know.
No, because there's that sequence at the beginning of the game where you're like because the game opens with you having a conversation with your therapist.
Right.
And she's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to go meet my brother. And they're like, well, do they know about your condition?
Right.
And So she was definitely, I mean, maybe she was just like, it's weird that she would be in foster care at that age.
Right.
As opposed to, I don't know, because it just comes off as regular therapy at the beginning. It's only later that you kind of get the full story.
Mm-hmm.
God, that is such a question.
Yeah.
How old is Alex?
Maybe in the fictional Life is Strange universe, the drinking age is 18.
That would solve a lot of problems. So get on that. We need to pass legislation to make the drinking age 18.
Yeah.
So the game makes a little bit more sense.
But anyway, not to uncover that little detail, but yeah, all I was trying to say is like it made Alex seem young and out of her league.
For sure. And definitely was. I don't know. I get because in my playthrough and the with the choices I made, I felt like that scene didn't really lead to all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 5th chapter picks up with you.
With you.
I may be forgetting something. Because is it the end of the 4th chapter where Jed tries to fucking assassinate you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that scene still doesn't lead to much because you do just get
you going to the mines.
Yeah. But yeah, Jed does then take you out to the mines, like after you come back to the apartment, and fucking does the old push
you down
a
down a mine shaft.
Yeah. And then I think is when the 5th chapter actually occurs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this sequence is very cool in my opinion. Not the part where you wander through a cave, but like the parts that are happening inside of Alex's mind.
Mm-hmm.
I almost kind of wish they would have gone further.
And you actually got to like see a flashback.
Yeah.
And play through it, or
yeah, because
sort of thing.
What you end up with is like this very cool like indie game ass abstract therapist's office section where you're going through and like nothing is like normal and you have to like fix the guitar and get a key to a door and leave the room.
Yeah, that felt very Life is Strange 1.
Mm-hmm. But then you end up in this like series of flashbacks where you're like you with your mother as she's dying, and then the sequence with your dad and how he like left and shit. And then eventually it like kind of it turns out that your dad also came to Haven Springs at a very It's a Small World moment, and you're like,
and he died and Gabe took his place, and then Gabe died and you took his place. It's a long lineage.
It is a lineage of family members replacing each other in a confusing manner. So how do you feel about this last chapter?
I liked it well enough. I think like you were saying, I feel like I wish they would have done a little bit more to keep going back to the well that is the first game. Like the 5th chapter felt like it was really like meaty.
Yes.
And this felt kind of like really brisk.
Yeah. In the end, I feel like the 5th chapter, with everything I just described, ends up being like a little weak.
Yeah.
It's like one of my least favorite parts, I think. It doesn't feel like you progress relationships because it is trying to come to an end. No, you're
basically by yourself the whole time.
Yeah. So you end up sort of wandering a bit, and then it just sort of like works itself out in a really serendipitous and strange kind of way.
Yeah, in a Life is Strange kind of way.
In a Life is Strange kind of way.
But how many, I'm curious, people took your side against Jed at the end?
I think it was everyone except for the cop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think only 2 people took my side.
Wow. I don't remember.
Like Steph and it was, I think, Eleanor.
Eleanor?
No, not Eleanor. It was somebody else. But I don't remember. It was maybe Mac. Is Mac even there? I'm trying to remember. It was only 2 characters though that took my side.
Right. If I don't remember if Mac was there, I would have to like go back and look at my statistics to be sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I did not complete because Eleanor is on the panel.
Yeah.
And I didn't complete her goal to the end.
Right. I don't
if
think
that's
I did either. But
I know Ducky did.
Yeah.
And I know that Charlotte did.
Yeah. Anyway,
Throw my hands up. I don't remember what the rest of it is.
It almost made me feel like there was like a chunk of the game that like I had just missed somehow. Because like only 2 people were on my side at the end.
Yeah. Well, you did apparently need to take the fear,
right?
In order to get him.
Do, yeah.
So that's not really you missing a part. That's just like a binary choice that affected the ending in a way that you had no way of knowing.
Yeah, but like, I don't know what else I could have done with Charlotte to make her be on my side.
So what, in the end then, because like my ending where I believe I got most people to vote for me, it was like, basically there's an article printed in the town paper that's like, you're a hero, and a bunch of people asking you to do interviews with them because you get the company shut down.
Okay. That didn't happen.
That did not happen. No. Okay. I might like your ending better. I might need to go fuck around some more.
You just basically confront him by yourself. You gotta go into his mind and make him like have a change of heart.
Right. No, that does still happen.
But then, like, no, I don't think there's any like fanfare for you afterwards.
Oh wow, lame.
Unless I'm just forgetting it.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that did not happen.
Yeah, I do. I'm like trying to go a little bit faster because I know we're running along in the second half. But like, I do like the sequence where you were talking to Jed.
Yeah.
Though it feels like, God, where did all of this like come from to some extent?
Mm-hmm.
But it does, like, it feels impactful in the moment, and I think that's kind of what matters. I think it's weird that Jed just kind of sits there and takes it.
Yeah.
Like, I think there should have been a bit more of a dialogue, but I don't think that's, like, the energy they wanted for the scene.
Right, it almost kind of feels like time stops a little bit. Yeah, like you're in his head.
Mm-hmm. But there's then a sequence, and I don't know if this played out the same way for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the game where you talk to Gabe's Force Ghost, and he just tells you what one of the endings would be if you chose it.
Yeah, so, this is something I was really curious what you thought, what your thoughts were on the final ending choice, which is whether or not to stay or to leave the town. It felt like so much of a non-choice, because they aren't mutually exclusive. Like, going on the road and leaving doesn't mean you can't ever come back.
Yeah, and staying does not mean that you can't ever leave.
Yeah, so it was really weird, because it felt like it was presented as, like, a one or the other kind of choice.
Yeah.
I chose to go on the road with Steph.
And I actually chose to stay.
Yeah, I was surprised that, like, I think it was, like, 78% of people stayed.
Wow. See, I thought that I was going rogue by choosing to stay, because I felt like, because Gabe just gives you a big long speech about what would happen if you stayed, made me think, like, I feel like they're pushing me to leave, because I already have I already know what happens if I stay.
I feel like it was the opposite. Like, they were trying to get you to pick it by showing you how awesome it was.
I think maybe we have different mindsets
which is why one of the things that pushed me to do the opposite. I'm like, I'm not going to do what the game tells me to do.
I still think, admittedly, I still think this is a better ending choice than the one in Life is Strange 2, which also feels like a non-ending. This doesn't.
I don't know if I agree with that, actually, but
we'll see. Hear me out.
Sure.
My rationale here is, I feel like this game didn't want the ending choice to be a big thing.
Right.
And so it presents you with 2 really normal human options of stay in the town that you live in or go somewhere else, which is a thing people choose to do all the time. My problem is, I don't like that they tell you everything that happens in the one ending before you choose.
It's very weird.
Because if you're someone like me, that pushes me to want to choose to leave just so that I know what happens in both cases.
Right.
But then I tried to big brain it and go, maybe it'll turn out way different than what Gabe said if I choose to stay. And it doesn't.
Yeah.
It just is what he did, what he told you it was going to be. So it's weird. It's a weird choice, and also it's weird that Steph bought fucking bus tickets already.
Yeah.
And then just tears them up like the day of. I don't know. And also there's a sequence of Ryan acting sad if you choose to leave. I know this.
It's a Unix system.
I know this.
But yeah, I feel like I kind of agree with the idea of like going in a different direction and like making the final choice like not super significant. I just kind of feel like they botched it.
Okay.
It maybe overcorrected, or the really bizarre decision to just show you what happens. That's another thing that sitting here thinking about it now is weirder than I thought it was. But yeah.
I mean, I guess you kind of know what happens if you choose not to save Arcadia Bay. It will get exploded.
Right. But, yeah. It felt like a weird note to end on.
Yeah. And the only reason that I say that I like it better than how Life is Strange 2 did it is because we all thought that it was a non-choice as well.
Yeah. But, like, for completely different reasons.
Sure.
Like, I think it worked for the story.
Yeah, I would much rather have a non-choice after a satisfying build-up to it than a non-choice that presents itself like it somehow isn't.
Sure.
I don't know. But that might be more of like a meta read than anything else. But yeah, I like the ending of this game without really liking the like having there be a choice in the endings.
Yeah.
Like I just like that the game sort of like peters out and becomes regular life.
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't have had the choice, honestly.
Yeah, just
buck the trend.
Force you to stay or go without. Well, you wouldn't get the sequence of Steph tearing up the bus tickets.
Yeah.
Which might be a good thing. I don't know. Haven't figured it out yet. Do we have feelings, thoughts? Imagine that, like, feelings and then, like, a slash thoughts. It's like...
I was thinking empathic thoughts.
It doesn't start with an F.
No. But anyway. My feelings, thoughts are... I feel like I'm a little conflicted about this game. I liked it, but I feel like I want to like it more than I did. Because the first one's one of my favorite games. And... I also feel like I'm a little bit more high on this than I would have been otherwise because Life is Strange 2 was bad, so this one looks better by comparison.
Fair.
But I do feel like this one's not going to stick with me as much if I'm like thinking forward to the future. And I think the biggest reason is because of, like I said earlier, is like the story pacing. Like I feel like that's really what this lacks if you want to compare it directly with the first one, is that like I said, it's just as long, but it feels like so much less happens. Like, a lot of the sequences feel really short. Like, so, like I think, like, episode 4 and 5 felt, like, really short to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you just kind of, like, went through them, and you didn't get those slow-paced, like, interactions. Like, I wanted more interactions with the characters. But, I mean, definitely... great improvements though over the second one. Like they got the spirit of Life is Strange right, which is the most important thing, I think. Yeah, and I want to see what they do next. Like I don't know if they're gonna keep working on this franchise, but like I like what Deck 9 managed to do with this, and I think they did mostly like kind of redeem the Life is Strange name in my eyes. Not to be too over dramatic,
sure,
about Life is Strange 2, but yeah. So I liked this game a lot, but I couldn't shake that kind of feeling of like wanting a little bit more out of it, which isn't totally fair to the game. But yeah, I guess those are my feelings, thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to something like this, you can't really like. It's not necessarily about being fair to the game when you're talking about just sort of how you feel about it, which is why I'm going to be overly fair to the game. So I really loved this game. I thought that this was kind of a return to form. After finishing it, for the day or so after, I was on such a high about it. I was like, I might like this better than the first one, even if I like mentally think that Life is Strange 1 is like a much better designed game. I think that Life is Strange 3 really plays to my interests a lot. I think that it does a lot of things that I really liked about the other Life is Strange games. And I feel like this game plays to the like Twitter and the subreddit crowds who are going to want to focus on the character interaction and less so on the overarching stuff, and want to draw fan art of fucking Jed and Ducky getting it on or whatever. And that's like totally fine, I think, for them feeling like they should focus on the things that the fans connect with. But in the end, it feels like they had this story they really wanted to make the central arc of the game, and they got into it so quickly without spending the time with the characters that is how the first game became so good.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this game because of the character interactions, but because they focused on them, it made them push the actual plot way into the background for the whole game, where it is like just the second thing you do in every chapter. It's like you do all the stuff with all the people, and then there's a little bit about the mining company, and then you do that all the way up until the end. I don't know. I agree with it is better paced, but also has a weird story pacing than the second one.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like ups and downs, but they're all layered on top of each other, which ends up being a weird straight line.
It's not as cohesive of a mix.
Yeah. And nothing I've said so far has been as cohesive of a sentence. So I do like this game for all the wrong reasons, I think is how I want to end it. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, next thing that you will hear from us will probably be the No Clip Awards 2022. Or 2021. I don't know how we've been numbering these.
I think it's 2021.
Yeah.
Because it was the 2021 games.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So early January, you should hear from us about what games we liked and what games we liked the balls in. And then after that, you'll hear us talk about Metroid Dread, which came out just a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is the next sequel 2D Metroidvania game in the Metroid franchise.
Mm-hmm. Kind of came out of nowhere.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't think anyone expected a sequel to Fusion to just kind of come out.
Yeah, after they had announced Prime 4 so long ago. But maybe we'll talk about that when that episode comes out. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro, where you can find our email address, our Twitter account, the Discord, where you can suggest games for us to talk about, or talk about the games that we've already talked about. The YouTube channel, where you can find all of our old episodes, including episodes on Life is Strange and Life is Strange. And Grim Fandango.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's an adventure game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're on Google Podcasts. It's called that now instead of Google Play. Weird of them to do that.
Replace Gabe in the comment section.
Push the subscribe button down a mine shaft.
Mm-hmm. Steal someone's anger in the comment section to keep all of the negative emotions out of there.
Guess the correct number of likes in the jar, and you'll win
a subscription to the No Clip podcast. Okay, it's staying in the green. You're not clipping to the yellow.
Yeah, but like, is it gonna clip? Oh, it actually isn't gonna clip when I talk like that.
What if I talk passionately about time splitters?
Even at your most passionate talking about time splitters, it did not clip into the yellow.
What a perfect future.
Mm-hmm. Finally living up to our namesake, not clipping.
Yep.